Good evening, guys. Today is July 20th, 2020, and today we're going to be looking at what my personal presidential election prediction is. I'm Rose Poro, and just a quick disclaimer, this is not a video where it's going to be based off of polls or based off of any predictions from pollsters. It's simply going to be what my personal opinion is, regardless of what the polls say, regardless of what the current state of the race is. So, with that being said, we're going to go along and color some of these states for each candidate that are considered safe. So for the former vice president, as we know, he's ahead in the polls. But despite this, I don't feel that these polls are a certain show that the vice president is truly leading by this big of a margin. Although I do believe he's winning in a lot of these states, I don't believe that the margin that he's winning by is by a lot of these points and a lot of what these polls say. So, with that being said, this is our current state of the race. Former Vice President Joe Biden starts with 187 electoral votes to President's 126. And starting off again on the West Coast, personally, I believe Nevada. So, actually, before we get into the states, a lot of these states are considered either safe or likely for each candidate. With the ones that are currently in the toss-up column, the only ones that are really, actually I should include Virginia in the safe column. The rest of the states are states that are being contested by both parties that have recent polling that show that they're close, and that I personally believe that are going to be in contention, or going to be contested later on in the election, and as we get closer to election day. So now, with that being said, our current race is 200 electoral votes for the former vice president and 126 for President Trump. So now starting off on the West Coast, the state of Nevada and its 6 electoral votes, a huge Latino vote, a huge urban area with Las Vegas in Reno County. 6 electoral votes is voted Democratic in the last 3 elections, and by a good margin, Obama won it in both of his elections. Hillary Clinton won this again pretty well. Especially with the big minority vote, the big Latino vote, I believe this state will stay in a Democratic column in the 2020 election. And the same thing goes with Colorado. It has similar traits to that of Nevada, just with more rural area. I feel like Joe Biden is going to do really well in the suburban areas where the election is usually won in Colorado. He's going to do well with minority voters, with Hispanic voters in that Denver area. And he's going to bring out those big numbers inside those urban areas, which is going to really help him overcome that huge energy that rural voters are having in this election. So now, with that being said, move on to the state of Texas. Texas is 38 electoral votes. Most people didn't expect Texas to be a toss-up state this election, but recent polling says otherwise. Most recent poll actually shows the former vice president ahead by a point. And although recent polls do show him in being close to the president, I feel like that it'll still stay red this election just because of the amount of rural vote in this state. Although there's a great amount of urban vote, again, as you saw in the 2018 midterm elections, Beto O'Rourke couldn't defeat Ted Cruz, although he did get close, which was a sign of Texas turning even more blue. I feel like the president, as of now, would, if the election were today, July 20th, he would carry the state of Texas. And just to let you guys know again, this is just a prediction of what would happen if the election were today, July 20th, if the polls were open, if they closed at certain times that they closed. But again, none of this is final. Again, we have a lot of time left until the election, so a lot of this can change. This can be very different when we go on final presidential prediction right before the election, or it can be the same. Just depends on how I feel, how the polling shows, what the mood, what predictions are, and other things. So with that being said, we're gonna move on to the South. State of Georgia, 16 electoral votes, and although this was also a lean Republican state in 2012, 2016, it's gotten closer in 2020, and there's a huge black vote in the state, a huge minority vote in this state. There's also a huge white population, as there is in a lot of states, and a huge rural area. So with that being said, Georgia hasn't voted for a Democrat since, if I'm not mistaken, 1996, which was when Bill Clinton won the state of Georgia, or 1992, I'm not sure. But So, for that being said, I don't feel that Georgia would be turning blue this election. Maybe in 2024, 2028, it could turn red, or it could turn blue. Excuse me. But for now, I don't believe it will. It will. So now we'll leave Florida left alone because again, it's Florida. It's a close race. Move on to the Rust Belt, to the Midwest. Moving on to the state of Iowa, 6 electoral votes. The president carried the state very easily, despite it being a battleground state. He carried it by around 9 points in 2016 because of the big amount of rural vote, the amount of people that came out in droves to go vote, the amount of people that the president is able to energize to get his base fired up to go out in droves to go get them to vote, especially in these rural areas, helps his case for not doing so well usually in other aspects in urban areas, maybe sometimes suburban areas, and in other groups, women, educated people, and etc. Other things like this. So for now, I feel like the margin is definitely going to be closer. The former vice president definitely has a shot in the state as of now. The polls do still show him ahead, so I'm going to be giving the state to the president. In the north of that, Minnesota, 10 electoral votes, home state of Amy Klobuchar, who we know did run for president in 2020, and it's voted Republican ever since 1980, I believe. So with that being said, Minnesota again, 10 electoral votes, pretty Democratic state, although it is turning more red every year. It is trending towards the Republican side. It is still a Democratic state. And so with that being said, I believe the former vice president will be able to win this. And again, a lot of these states could change just because of who Joe Biden's vice presidential choice is. It could help him in one of these swing states. It could hurt him in some of these swing states. But we just have to wait and see. So now we'll move on more eastward. Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's home state. Multiple polls show him actually pretty ahead in this state. Doing really well in the Philadelphia area, in the Pittsburgh area, in the urban areas, and more suburban, like Scranton, where he was born, where was his hometown. And so with that being said, again, the president did carry this in 2016, but it's mainly because of the lack of African American vote that Secretary Clinton lost from Obama. So I feel like the former vice president will be able to get that African American vote, that Hispanic vote, that minority vote out to vote, and we'll be able to do well with steel workers, with more blue collar workers in his state. Or you can call them Reagan Democrats, gun-owning Democrats, and pro-life Democrats. I feel like he'll do well in this state, and I feel like he will pick this up in 2020, excuse me. So with that being said, 245 to 186 for the former vice president. Moving on to the West, the state of Ohio. Again, no Republican candidate has ever won the presidency without winning the state of Ohio since Richard Nixon in 1960. So definitely a must-win for the president. 18 electoral votes in 2016. He won this surprisingly by a big margin, 9 points. Again, Ohio has been always a make-or-break state for a lot of candidates. The winner of Ohio has gone on to win the past like 5 elections, 10 elections, I don't know. But it's been pretty close, usually, except in 2016. 2012, Obama won it by 2 points. In 2008, although it wasn't that close, it was still a 6-point margin. 2004, around 2 points. 2000, around 2 points as well. So definitely a 9-point margin is very surprising. Was very surprising in 2016. So with that being said, the state, I believe, is trending more and more Republican. I feel like definitely without a doubt, the margin of victory is going to be less, whether it be for the former vice president or for the president. But as of currently today, I feel like the president would be able to carry and retain the state of Ohio, just because of how well he does in that southeastern part, where a lot of factory workers are, especially, and also with the suburban voters being able to do well in those areas. So yeah, moving on northward, state of Michigan, a big state that Secretary Clinton couldn't carry in 2020, mainly just because of not being able to drive out the African American vote, especially in those Detroit areas, in more suburban areas. And this is something I feel like the former vice president will be able to do. I feel like he will be able to get these minority voters out to vote, these African American voters out to vote, these gun-owning pro-life Democrats, that are very common in the state, in this area of the country, and blue collar workers, and other groups of voters. So definitely, I feel like he will be able to retain the state of Michigan, 16 electoral votes, which is very vital for him. Now moving on to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes, was a state that gave President Trump his victory in 2016. He won it by less than 50,000 votes. Again, in all three of the states in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which he all won by less than a point, the margin of his victory was smaller than the margin of African American voters that voted for Obama that didn't vote in 2016. So definitely, that's a big reason why the Democrats failed to win in 2016. And they've learned that if they can't bring them out to vote, they're going to lose. And that's how it's going to be, especially in this part of the country. So I feel like, again, as I've said in previous states, I feel that Joe Biden is going to be able to bring out these voters in droves. He's going to be able to bring out a lot of these progressive voters as well, which also might be a problem just because of the division that there might be in the Democratic Party, just because of the Bernie Sanders wing, the more progressive wing, and more centrist wing of Joe Biden, of Pete Buttigieg and Barack Obama and other candidates. So that being said, I believe that he will be able to carry the state of Wisconsin and will be able to win the election as of now. So with 3 states left, amassing 55 electoral votes, I feel like the former vice president will be able to win, regardless of what happens in North Carolina, what happens in Arizona, or in Florida. So now, moving on to North Carolina. The state is very close. Again, it voted for the president by around 3 points, 4 points in 2016. Although polls do show it handily not handily, but in the former vice president's column currently by around 4 or 5 points. I feel like down the ballot, it's also gonna feel like in a lot of these races down the ballot, it's gonna show the effect of whatever the presidential race is. So in a lot of these states, for example, if Michigan or Wisconsin turns out to be going red for the president, a lot of these governor races and senate races, not Wisconsin or Michigan, other states like North Carolina, for instance, if it's won by the president, it's likely that the governor race is going to be way closer. If Joe Biden wins, it's clear that most of these House races are going to be going in the Democratic favor, and that the governor race won't be so close. So again, this race is really close. Pretty undecided, honestly, about this. But for the time being, I'm going to side with the polls. I'm going to side with what the experts say, and I'm going to be giving this to Joe Biden. So 15 electoral votes, a flip from 2016. So yeah, moving down south, Florida, the president's home state, as he calls it. 29 electoral votes, a must win for the president again. I feel like as if Joe Biden's camp hasn't really done much campaigning in this state, hasn't really done enough, in my opinion, to try to get those Hispanic voters, especially in those big three counties out in the south near Miami, to go out and vote. So I definitely feel that the president really does really well with rural voters, gets them out energized to go out and vote, especially in that panhandle area. I feel like he'll do well in that I-4 corridor, which is that center part of the state where most Florida elections are won. So for the time being, if the election was today, I do feel like the president will be able to retain the state of Florida, whether it be by a huge or small margin. And I just realized I haven't forgotten about. Actually, I did forget about New Hampshire and Maine, but so just quickly filling those out. The state of Maine, I feel like the state of Maine, I feel like the former vice president would be able to carry it. The first congressional district, I feel like it's very democratic. It's not very democratic, but it's democratic enough for the former vice president to carry it. Again, Hillary Clinton did carry it in 2016. But the one that matters really is the second congressional district. That one voted for the president. And unfortunately, we don't have polling in that congressional district. But I feel like Joe Biden would be able to do well in that area. Would be able to do better with senior citizens, with more uneducated people, and lower the margin of what the president was, lower the gap that the president won it by in 2016. So for the time being, we're going to be giving that to the former vice president. New Hampshire, again, is a big state in how much it means for the race. Most of the state identifies as independents. So we're going to be putting that in the Democratic column, just because I feel like the former vice president does well in the state, just because of how he can appeal to independent voters, more moderate voters. Now moving on finally to the state of Arizona. I feel like the former vice president would be able to do well, just because of the amount of Hispanic voters in the state, minority voters, and how the state is just trending more and more Democratic every election. So that being said, this is our current map: 305 electoral votes for the former vice president, 233 for President Donald Trump. And so yeah, this is a longer video. May try to cut it down in the future videos, but yeah, just to let you guys know, probably will be posting a few, at least one election night in the coming weeks, or coming week. Probably Joe Biden versus Trump, or it can be someone else. Probably do more alternate history or different presidential predictions if it were either Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, etc. against the president in this election, and also do election nights on that. So again, if you guys want some certain video, some suggestions, leave them down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, all that jazz. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one.